McCarthy Insurance Group, serving the community for over 70 years. For home, farm, motor, life, health and business insurance, log on to mig.ie or free phone 1800 50 11 11. Probably your best call in 2024. Charles McCarthy Insurance is trading as McCarthy Insurance Group, is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.
Good evening, how are you doing?
Well, I have to say, what a miserable, miserable day it is in Dublin. I hope it's not quite as miserable in Cork. The rain hasn't stopped since this morning. I reckon we'll be flooded out of it by tomorrow morning.
Well, it's always sunny in the Echo offices anyway. Come to the Echo offices, it's always sunny.
Well, let's look at some of these stories this week. Albert Toomey, whose world was shattered after her entire family were wiped out by a suicidal driver. I mean, what a shocking story this is.
Yeah, so this is a date for your diary, June 10th and 11th. Elber will be having the 10th and final fundraising event. It's called the Toomey Family Memorial. Now, you might remember Elber Toomey. She's a truly inspirational woman whose world was turned upside down after her entire family, as you said, were wiped out by a suicidal driver. So she was Elber and her husband, Connie, they were on their way to a play centre in the UK. They were on holidays. What happened was, so the Toomeys had been driving to a play centre when they encountered a 26-year-old suicidal taxi driver named Marek on the same road. So police had been searching for Marek following the discovery of a suicide note. However, he deliberately crashed head-on into Elber and her family's car after swerving in response to police sirens. Now, Elber, another layer to the story, Elber was actually pregnant at the time, so she lost her unborn baby as well. Oh my. She lost her husband, Connie. He survived for a little while, but died from his injuries 10 months later. And her little toddler, Oisin, as well. So you would think in that situation that there would be no forgiveness, but Elber is, I would go as far as saying she's the bravest and the most resilient person I've ever interviewed in my life. So she's forgiven the taxi driver. Not only did she forgive him, she made contact with the family, she sympathized with them, and she lights candles every day for not only for her own family. She gives them all a candle each. Her own family she lost. She lights a candle for Marek too. Now that's forgiveness on another level.
Oh, it certainly is.
It reminds me of 2007. Do you remember those Amish school shootings in 2007?
Yes.
There was a number of children who were shot and lost their lives, and days after burying their own children, the parents of those children, they went to the killer's funeral to actually hug the families and sympathise with the family, because as far as they were concerned, they had lost somebody too. And that's the only time I've ever seen forgiveness like that so close to home. So this event that she organises every year so that people will remember her family.
It's really sweet, isn't it? It's really nice, yeah.
It's really sweet. So it's in Meelan. It leaves Rock Chapel normally, and that's on the 10th and 11th of June. And she has a Facebook page for it as well. And a quote from her from last year, which is really nice and something that has stuck with me. She said, "It's easy to blame a figure until you see the humanity." So what she's referring to there was, she's talking about the police officer who pursued the Marek, the suicidal driver, that day. They turned the sirens on, and she felt that it might have panicked him a bit and things might have been different.
Yeah.
And it could have been handled differently. But she said that when she saw the police officer at the inquest, she reminded her of her brother, and she saw the humanity, and that's when she decided that she'd make a difference. And because of her, there's they've made improvements in the police force and in the UK, and they've made so many improvements. And there's even they've even added a module for students of the Garda Training College in Templemore. So that's a real result, isn't it?
Absolutely. And I was actually we were talking about something else the other night on the radio, and I actually mentioned that event because it came to mind. We were talking about suicide, and we were talking about people in responsible jobs, etc., drivers and pilots and everything else. And, you know, we were talking about what would happen if somebody was a pilot and decided they wanted to take their own life and then took everybody else's with it as well. And we mentioned that particular event. But it was a shocking story, but certainly a sweet sentiment that comes out of it. Now, a Cork woman who thought her sporting ambition of competing internationally had been dashed by leukemia has been given a second chance at her dream 26 years on.
Yeah, this one's a nice one too. Mairead O'Mahony has reunited with her former coach John Marr, who was one of her most supportive influences as a teen. So she's competing in the World Transplant Games. Her brother donated bone marrow to her when she was 17 years old. At that stage, she'd been tipped for international success as an athlete, but she had to put her dreams on hold, and her focus had to be just on getting better, basically. So she's rang John Marr, her old coach, 26 years later, and asked, is there any chance you could show me how to pick up a shot put in javelin again? So she's going over to Perth, I believe, is where the Transplant Games are this year, and it's a multi-sports event for transplant recipients. And she's very much looking forward to that, but she says it's really nostalgic for a throwback to being 16 again. And she said she has to pinch herself and say, is this really happening? Do I really get to compete in an international level?
26 years later.
Yeah. So the first thing she did after setting eyes on the kit was call her older brother, Willie, who donated the bone marrow to her, and she thanked him for saving her life.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah. She says that it's not something they live and breathe, but there's moments where she's just stopped in her tracks, and she says, I'm so lucky, because when she was 17, she was so naive.
Yes.
She didn't see the danger as much, but now she realises, I think, how lucky she is.
And also, by the way, I'm quite curious about this story. A Cork man has raised more than a couple of eyebrows after having an iconic logo tattooed on his face. Now, unfortunately, I'm dying to know what the logo was, the iconic logo, but why on his face?
Yeah, thank you, Cork BO, for the story. They beat us to it in the Echo on this occasion, I must say, because I really like this one. So most of the time, iconic logos, they conjure up images of McDonald's, Golden Arches, or the Coca-Cola colours. However, this man went for something a little closer to home. So Paul Keane has only gone and got the Department of Social Protection's logo tattooed to his face.
What, the doves?
And the mad thing is, he's not even unemployed. He's working in a Cork City restaurant. It doesn't say which one, but I really would like to know. So I'm
sure the Department of Social Protection are delighted. I'm sure the Minister for Social Protection, they could use him as an advertisement, hopefully not for people unemployed. A Cork man has also won the equivalent of the Farmers Lottery. I didn't even know such a thing existed, after his ewe gave birth to quintuplet lambs.
Yeah, no, the Farmers Lottery doesn't actually exist, but it sounds good, doesn't it?
It does sound good. I was thinking it was monetary there for a minute. I didn't realise he was only going to get a few sheep.
Oh, but they're not just any sheep.
No.
So he's witnessed a one in a million occurrence when a quintuplet of lambs was born on his farm near Manan Bridge in Cork. So this is a story that was published in the Irish Examiner. Pat said he was delighted and elated because he'd never had the likes of it before in about 50 years of keeping sheep. And it's happened before he's retired. Mm-hmm. And Mr. Cooney also explained that it is vital that lambs receive their first milk within 2 hours of being born. So once the lambs had been born safely, Mr. Cooney was able to intervene with a ewe milk substitute. I didn't know that existed.
No, neither did I. No, a ewe milk substitute. It's like cow and gate. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was to ensure the newborns receive the nutrition they require. But isn't it well for the mum, isn't it? She's no school runs, no voluntary contributions. I wouldn't mind being a sheep.
Yeah, I think you'd make a good sheep, Sarah. Sorry, I shouldn't say. That's almost like an insult to you. Andy Moynihan, by the way, from Ballydesmond, raised funds. Now, I'm really interested in this because I find it difficult to reverse into a parking space. Never mind reverse 76 kilometres just for charity.
Okay, well, you're talking to someone who did their driving test 10 times, and that's not an exaggeration, unfortunately. So, yeah, I do identify with that. So, Cork man, he's reversed around a 76-kilometre route to raise funds for charity and also to honour the memory of his late brother-in-law, Andy Moynihan. This is from Elaine Whelan in the Echo, by the way. So Andy Moynihan from Ballydesmond raised funds for Pieta House by reversing a car, and that was on Easter Sunday. So he reversed it through Boherbue, Newmarket, Canturk, Bantir, the list goes on.
Did he have to sit with his head looking backwards, or did he have a camera on the back of it to make things easier?
He would have. I'm sure he would have had a guide. Would you believe my neighbour who died during the pandemic, John MacDonald? He had a tour bus, and he actually made a 110-mile journey backwards around the Ring of Kerry. That's not a lie. And I remember he had guides behind them, and they were helping him negotiate.
Yeah, because that would be no mean feat, to be honest with you, particularly when you get to bends and U-turns and all sorts of things, you know.
Yeah, and I was telling my sister about my neighbour John MacDonald as well, who did that mad reversing thing, and she goes to me, "Did he get done for it?" It didn't occur to her that it might be in a fundraising. She thought he just did it for the laugh, but he did that. Yeah, he did that for a couple of charities too. But as far as I know, Andy's reverse car run did really well, so we'll be checking in with him to see how much he raised. But his goal was 3,000, and I've no doubt it was actually his late brother-in-law as well. I think I might have said late brother there. Yeah. But I've no doubt either way that his brother-in-law would be very proud of him. Michael Murphy was his name.
Also, by the way, you can't beat a good Titanic story. I always like to end on a good Titanic story. I love everything about Titanic, by the way. The whole story just intrigues me. But this particular week, the Irish Central has put the spotlight on a very interesting artefact on display in Cove. So what is the artefact?
So the artefact is... it's a message in a bottle. So these were the chilling last words of 19-year-old Jeremiah Burke from Glanmire in County Cork. And what's really amazing about this story is it turned up only a few miles away from his own house, from his own home. So that would have been in Dunkettle that it found its way there.
Well, I said it washed up on a beach somewhere.
It was where it just said near Dunkettle. I just know there's a huge motorway there now and everything else. So wherever it was at the time, yeah. Okay. So it just read from Titanic, goodbye all. People were so different back then. They were people of few words, weren't they?
No, they were, yes, certainly. And of course, if you were from Cork, probably, you wouldn't have been in first class. You would have been in carriage class, and you would have been the last one to get a lifeboat. So I'd say if you were sitting out in carriage class from somewhere in Cork on the Titanic, you were probably thinking, I'm doomed. I might as well write some sort of message here and fling it over the side.
And do you know, the awful thing is, because we were talking about trolls last week and keyboard warriors, I only thought that it was now that people had become really mean. But back then, there were lots of hoaxes with messages in bottles, and none of them turned out to be real. But how they knew that this one was real was because it was in the holy water bottle that Jeremiah's mum had given to him, and he had tied the letter with his shoelace. So he had obviously accepted he was going to die. To think that he removed his shoelace. And the sad thing was, it said his mother died within a year of a broken heart.
No.
She probably didn't get to see that message in a bottle. She was actually at a removal when somebody came up to her and sympathised with her, somebody else's removal, and that was when she realised that her son had died.
I'm just wondering what I would write on a message. If you were to write on a message, Sarah, I'm just going to put you on the spot here now. Forget about Titanic and sinking on ships. But if you were the last person on the planet and you were to write a message in a bottle to sum up the world that we live in, what would you write in the message?
It would have to be something really funny. Remember that guy who had in his gravestone, it was, I told you I was sick.
Spike
It would
Milligan.
have to be something like that, but something that would be in context.
Spike Milligan, of course, one of Ireland's most famous comedians, when he died, yes, on his headstone is written, "I told them I was sick," which I thought was brilliant. Really great. Yes, I probably, like yourself, would have to write something funny. You just couldn't be serious about it, could you? You know?
You're talking about last words, weren't you?
Yeah, I'm talking about famous last words.
Yeah.
Yeah, your epitaph,
Okay, yeah.
I suppose. Yes. Anyway, listen, Sarah, it's been lovely talking to you as usual, and we shall catch up with you again next week for more of those local stories. Sarah Horgan from Echo Live, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Now, real people, real opinions. Nighttime Talk with Niall Boylan.
Ireland's classic hits radio.